Let's set the stage. I, a 35-year-old male, thought I had a solid marriage with my wife, a 33-year-old female of 7 years. We had built a life together, and I believed in the strength of our bond. We met in our early 20s and instantly knew we would be together forever. We are both very career-driven people and have always discussed having children. Because of the financial commitment involved, we wanted to wait until we were on solid ground before trying. About a year before all of this, we began trying to have a baby, but my wife was infertile, so we couldn't have one naturally. I wanted to discuss other options, but she seemed to be uninterested in any other alternatives and shut me out completely. She was the love of my life, so I wanted us to fix things, but she denied every suggestion for counseling or therapy. Recently, things took a turn for the worse. My wife started exhibiting suspicious behavior, being secretive with her phone, working late more often, and growing more emotionally distant. I had a gut feeling something was going on, but I didn't want to believe it. A close friend told me it might be nice to surprise her one day because she was working late, and I thought about bringing dinner to cheer her up. I thought it was a great idea, so I stopped by her favorite restaurant and then made my way over. What I thought would be a romantic gesture ended with me discovering her in a compromising situation with none other than her boss. It was a shocking sight that left me heartbroken and angry. They were too busy with each other in her office to even notice me. I knew right away that was the end of our relationship. I dropped the food in the trash can and stormed out of her office. On the drive back home, I thought about what I was going to do. I thought about confronting her and demanding we divorce, but I knew that if I did, she would try to get spousal support from me. I knew that I needed to catch her in the act with evidence. Over the next few days, I crafted a plan to expose their affair. I was angry with her, so I wanted to ensure they faced the consequences of their actions, and I wanted our families to know the truth. First, I enlisted the help of a close friend who happened to be a talented videographer. We set up hidden cameras in my house to capture evidence of the affair. Shortly after setting up the cameras, I told my wife that I had an emergency business meeting and would be out of town for the weekend. She didn't ask any questions, she even seemed excited. There was no doubt in my mind that she was falling right into my trap and planned on inviting her boss over to our house. I rented a room at a hotel and waited until my trip was over, killing time by working with my divorce lawyer to get the papers prepared. When I got back home, I checked the tapes and confirmed that I did have the proper evidence to move on with the next phase of my plan. I pretended like everything was normal and went about my daily activities. Our anniversary was coming up, so I figured that was the perfect time to get some of our family and friends together. I sent invitations to over a dozen people, telling them that I was throwing a surprise anniversary brunch for my wife. I received a lot of excited RSVPs almost immediately, with people promising not to mention anything to her. On the day of the brunch, everybody loaded into our house. I set up a large banquet table with catered food, mimosas, and Bloody Marys. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. My wife had a bright look in her eyes, similar to when we first met, and I could see that the gesture impressed her quite a bit. That made the second half of the brunch even more rewarding for me. With the help of my friend, we put together a video to show at the party. The first half of the video was a collage of our marriage, wedding photos, videos of the two of us being silly and in love, you name it. If the second half didn't feature my wife in bed with her boss, it would have been really sweet. When everyone realized what was happening, shock and disbelief filled the room. Some family members were stunned into silence while others erupted in anger. It was an explosive moment, to say the least. While chaos erupted around me, I couldn't help but look at my wife's face and savor the humiliation. It seemed cruel, and even then I felt a little guilty. But I wanted her to feel the way I did when I found her sleeping with her boss. My wife stormed out, telling me that she never wanted to see me again. Before she could leave, I told her that I felt the exact same way, and handed her an envelope with the divorce papers inside. As expected, she did try to fight me during the divorce proceedings, but with the evidence that I had, she was unable to get anything from me. However, I did let her keep the house because I didn't want to live in the same place where I caught her cheating. I had actually been wanting to move to Oregon for a long time, so without her constant refusal, I was finally able to go. It's clear that the OP went through a tremendous amount of pain and betrayal discovering the affair. To the OP, I want to offer my sincerest apologies for the pain you've endured. Discovering infidelity is devastating, and it's completely understandable to want to seek some kind of justice afterward. It's clear that the OP was trying to salvage what was left of their marriage, and it's a shame that she wouldn't communicate her feelings with you before the affair. It almost makes me wonder if she planned on using the inability to conceive as a reason to end things, but was too nervous to say anything. Anyways, thank you for sharing with us. Now let's move on to our next story for the day. I, 32 male, recently discovered that my wife, 30 female, was cheating on me with my uncle, 45 male. My wife and I have been married for 5 years. She had never been close with her family, so when she met mine, she fell in love. We've always been extremely close-knit. Every year, my family would have a small vacation together. It was essentially a big family reunion, since we all lived in different states and only saw each other on major holidays. Our usual meeting place was my grandfather's lake house, which was huge. The adults each had their own rooms, while the kids shared rooms. The house had a pool, fishing dock, and boat, and it was right on the water. In the summer of 2019, my wife joined me on our first vacation together. However, due to the pandemic, we haven't been able to meet up as we normally would. In February of 2021, my wife became pregnant, so we were extra cautious to minimize exposure with a new baby on the way. During that time, we were extremely isolated together in our tiny apartment while working from home. We both value our alone time and independence, so codependency was never something we wanted in our relationship. However, being together so much did put a strain on our relationship. Despite this, we still deeply loved each other, and I never doubted her feelings. But we both knew we needed some space from each other, even if it was just the 8 hours we spent apart while working. Shortly before the baby was born, we closed on a house and moved everything over to prepare for the baby's arrival. Once the baby arrived, our love for each other only grew stronger. All the issues we had while in lockdown seemed to disappear, and we fell back into our usual patterns. It probably helped that the house was large enough for us to have our own space. This year, 2023, was the first time since the beginning of the pandemic that my family felt comfortable enough to get together again. My wife and I were thrilled to reunite with everyone and introduce our baby to my relatives. At first, everything was wonderful. We had a nice barbecue with the family on the day we arrived, the kids played in the water, and some of the adults took the boat out to enjoy the sun. My wife spent a lot of time with my uncle and his ex-wife. Their relationship is complicated, but in short, they were divorced, but still friendly and had a lot of love for each other. They wanted to make sure their children had a loving family despite the circumstances. I didn't think much of my wife spending time with them because she has always been a friendly and outgoing person, just like my uncle. They were both the life of any party they attended, so it was natural for their outgoing personalities to gravitate towards each other. However, I must have had my blinders on for the first couple of days of the vacation, because on the third day, while we were all sitting around the dinner table, I noticed my wife shuffling around in her seat a lot. She was sitting next to me, and my uncle was across from her. I tried to be subtle about figuring out what was going on, but I was able to catch a glance under the table to see her sliding her foot up his thigh. Instantly, I felt like I was going to be sick. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I didn't want to. I had to get away, so I faked feeling sick and went up to our room to lie down. She offered to come with me, but I told her I was fine. I just had to get away from her. Her laptop was sitting on the bed, and I couldn't resist the temptation to see if there had been any communication between her and my uncle. I hated to be the person to look through someone's messages, but that behavior couldn't have started out of the blue, right? I knew her password, so I logged into her Facebook account and searched through her messages. Lo and behold, I found her chats with my uncle. It all started when he posted a picture of himself at the beach on his timeline. She messaged him first, hinting at how good he looked. From there, the messages took a turn. They were extremely flirty, sexting, and they even exchanged some pictures with each other. It had been going on virtually for over a year. It didn't seem like they had any feelings for one another. It was purely lust. When I saw their most recent messages, my heart sank. She told him that they would finally have a chance to be with each other at the reunion, and that was what she was looking forward to most. Apparently, they snuck off to the boathouse together the night before to have sex, and they planned on doing it again that night. I was in so much pain that I didn't think there was any way for me to stay there. I thought about leaving and going home to pack my things, but I came up with a better idea. I wanted my family to know what they had done. I acted normal for the rest of the night, pretending to have a headache and staying behind in my room. After my wife thought that I was asleep, I joined some of my cousins on the porch later that night. I suggested that we should take the boat out and have a couple of beers on the water. At that time, I knew that my wife and uncle were planning on meeting each other there, and my cousins were always down for something spontaneous like that. We all walked over to the boathouse together, which was a short walk away from the main house. It was the only place on the property where somebody could go to have an illicit affair like they were without the risk of getting caught. When we got there, I opened the door to expose both of them to my cousins. The lights were already on, so they saw everything that was happening on top of the boat. I stormed off, pretending like I wasn't expecting to see what I did. My wife chased after me, and I told her that we were done, that there was no excuse for her behavior, and that I was going to file for divorce in the morning. She begged me not to do that, but I didn't listen. My cousins got into a blowout argument with my uncle for betraying his family the way he did. It was so loud that everyone else in the house woke up and got involved. Absolutely nobody could see either of their sides. In the end, I was able to divorce her, so she was out of the family for good. My uncle was shamed by everyone and told he would not be invited to the reunions anymore after that. His ex-wife and children were ashamed of his behavior. I hope that they would still consider going without him, but we'll see what happens next summer. First off, OP, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. You had gone through a lot with your ex before the vacation, and it really seemed like things were gonna work out. She and your uncle had been waiting and planning for their opportunity to betray you. That was clear. What I don't understand is why she wouldn't come to you if there was something wrong in your relationship. You seem like you would have wanted to mend anything that was broken between the two of you. It's a shame that she would stoop so low so easily, especially with a member of your own family. I hope that you've been able to heal and move on from her. From what you've described of your relationship, it sounds like you're better off without her. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.